It's Game Boy World, and this is exactly what it says on the label. There's something wonderfully charming about old games with aggressively prosaic titles. Such is the case with Card Game, which might have the most literal game name I've ever seen outside the sports genre. This is a case of absolute truth in advertising. Well, almost. Card Game is in fact 3 card games, and is far more mundane in its nature than Trump Boy was. Card Game comes to us courtesy of Marionette and Coconuts Japan, the combo that brought us the utterly agonizing Pachinko time. Card Game sees them dipping once again into the well that is real-life gambling experiences, though I have to say, Card Game is far more tolerable. Pleasant, even. You remember Pachinko time, of course. While it had a vague whiff of RPG about its overworld, the bulk of the game consisted of holding down the A button while fiddling with the D-pad to make minute adjustments to a seemingly endless stream of balls, with sessions that could take upwards of 20, even 30 minutes to clear a single table. On the other hand, Card Game is a perfectly fair and reasonable recreation of popular casino card games. Here we have blackjack, poker, and USA Page 1, which despite its weird name basically works like Crazy Eights or Uno. Oh, and also for some reason there's a fortune teller. Since everything here is based around your standard 52 card deck, the fortune teller tries to use a poker hand to tell your future rather than going with tarot cards, which is somewhat less than impressive. At the outset of Card Game, you're allowed 3 options: solo play, link play, or setting the timer. I strongly recommend beginning with option 3, as defining a limit to the duration of the game's sessions keeps it from becoming drawn out. Once you enter the 3 card games, they all work exactly as you'd expect. Poker deals players a hand and allows them to raise or fold, swapping out for new cards as they desire before they're forced to call. The standard rules of the game apply here. At a minimum, you need a pair, with high face values trumping lower ones. 3 of a kind beats a pair, 4 of a kind beats 3, flushes, straights, yada yada yada. I'm actually impressed with the opponent AI in this game. It's entirely possible to bluff. The computer doesn't have an uncanny ability to predict your hand, and I was able to cause the AI to fold despite my having a worthless hand simply by betting big. The simple fact that Card Game doesn't cheat aggressively makes it more entertaining than the vast majority of similar old casino games I've ever played. You begin with 100 chips to wager, and unlike pretty much any other 8-bit card game I've ever seen, it doesn't feel like an uphill battle from the very start. Blackjack proves to be similarly reasonable in design. As ever, your goal is to hit 21 without going over, adding up the face value of the cards you're dealt, and asking the dealer for additional cards to make up for your shortfall, while hoping you don't break 21. As in poker, Card Game's version of blackjack features fallible AI. It's perfectly capable of pushing its luck and going beyond 21, just the same as the player. And the final game, USA Page 1, is the closest thing to unconventional here. Like I said, it's basically Uno. Apparently this is a real card variant, normally called American Page 1. The fact that I've never heard of it means nothing, as I'm the furthest thing from a card game maven. In this case, I'm sure American was shortened to USA for space reasons, But it also has the benefit of giving the game a 3-letter title that starts with U, just like Uno. USA Page 1 is the only game in this collection to pit players against multiple opponents. Rather than going up against a single competitor or the dealer, you're playing against 3 others. The game wouldn't work nearly as well if it were a one-on-one affair, since a big part of the strategy here involves reversing the turn order and forcing others to skip their turns. If you're familiar with Uno or Crazy Eights, you have a pretty good sense of how USA Page 1 works. The game begins with everyone being dealt the same number of cards and drawing to see who takes the first turn. The overall goal of the game is to be the first to drop all your cards into the discard pile. The rules are simple. You have to play a card based on the one currently at the top of the active pile. If you don't have a playable card, you draw a card. You can play a card that's the same face value or the same suit as the current active card. If you drop a card of the same value in a different suit than is currently in play, the active suit changes. To add further complications, certain cards have additional effects. 7s cause the turn order to reverse direction, while 8s allow players to change play to any suit, regardless of the suit of the 8 card itself. Unlike in Uno, these effects aren't marked on the cards, so you need to know what effect your action will have in advance. As in Uno, you also have to speak up when you've reduced your hand to a single card. In this case, you say Page 1 instead of Uno, but the rule works the same either way. If you fail to call, your opponents can call you out and force you to draw 3 cards on the spot. Calling is a little tricky, as you have to hold select before playing your next to last card. So long as you remember to do that though, you have pretty good odds of stomping your AI opponents. At the end of the game, players are penalized based on the number of cards they have remaining. Play continues until you decide you've earned or lost enough points, or the timer dings. And that's all there is to Card Game. It's as straightforward a game as I've ever seen on Game Boy, as the title might suggest. Card Game lacks anything resembling thrills, unless you count the odd fortune teller mode, and honestly, that's its appeal. It's a simple, direct interpretation of real-world card games that doesn't try to incorporate any weird embellishments, and it offers players a sporting chance. I could see businessmen playing Card Game on a plane trip or long train rides circa 1990 to kill time. Probably not with the link cable option though, but solo for sure. Perhaps not surprisingly, Card Game never made its way outside of Japan. No Coconuts Japan published game would make it to the West until more than a year later, when Arcadia Systems picked up Caesar's Palace for the US, at which point Arcadia went out of business. Anyway, Card Game is shockingly generic, but for once, that's really not a bad thing. This isn't necessarily a game worth tracking down now, in this day and age, but neither will playing it make you hate life. That's certainly more than I can say for some Game Boy software. For more forgotten catalog filler titles, keep watching Game Boy World. Next time, it all comes full circle.